Well, I'm happy to be here. It's been fun doing a whole, 4 days of workshop, and then I'm excited to demo for you today. So excited to be part of the show. I mean, the show is just amazing. It's beautiful up there. It was fun to see all the different kinds of work and all what you could do with watercolor, right? I mean, it's just awesome. So today, since, got a short time, hour and a half, I thought what I'd do is I've started a painting, and I'm going to go and talk about how I'm going to finish this painting. So first I want to show you my reference photo. So this is my property in Pennsylvania, and I love snow. I love a lot of things, but one thing I love about moving to Pennsylvania is just the snow, the tree. I love the trees now. I'm from Utah. When I first moved there, I was overwhelmed, too many trees, but I'm learning to love them. So here's the reference photo, and I did an oil painting of this, and so what I'm going to be doing, I've not done it in watercolor yet until today. So I paint in oil as well. This one's in the National OPA show, so really excited. And yes, thank you. And so one thing I love to do, both in oil and watercolor, I love to work in both, and I'm always thinking about how I want to change up designs. You can see there's subtle changes, and I'll talk about some of that as I paint. Okay, let's have a chat. Why not? We got to make it somewhat exciting. So before I get into the demo, while we're trying to figure out that, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I don't know. Okay, so I've been drawing my whole life. So I love to draw. And, I started private drawing lessons at 11. So it was just something I always loved. I didn't start painting until later, but I started in oil, actually. I didn't start watercolor until later in life. But then, when my oldest was born, who is now 17, I stayed home, and that's when I started watercolor, focusing on it, and I put my oils away because I just thought, less toxic, then I'm not going to ruin my brushes. But from then, I started taking workshops. I became involved in the Watercolor Society in my area and just fell in love with watercolor. Oh, we're seeing him. That's good. Okay. But one thing is, I was talking about how design is really important to me, is I do a value study before every painting, okay? And this is one of my sketchbooks. Oh, yay! Okay. I was like, what else am I going to talk about? All right, I don't know. Okay, so yes, I always have a sketchbook with me. This is not a plein air one, of course, but it's for my studio, and that way I can come up with various ideas and decide which ones I like the best. Oh, there, maybe I can show that. Okay, so this is the value study that I started for my oil painting. Now, it's not exact, but it gives me the roadmap. It gives me the basic shapes, the big basic shapes, and that's what's important to me. And then I can, as I paint, make different ideas and decisions. Okay, so when I started this painting, this is 2 washes. So I always do a first wash where I'm basically tinting the white paper. So part of this probably comes from my experience as an oil painter. For me personally, I treat white paper as titanium white. Rarely am I going to use titanium white, exactly. Never am I going to use titanium white right out of the tube. I always tint it with something. Either I want a warmer white or a cooler white or something, some kind of tint. So the first wash is very, very light, even over the white of the snow is a warm wash. So I have the sky, warm wash, but I got even warmer down below. And it's hard to see it now because I have the next value on. Once you start putting in darker values, those lighter values appear really, really light. So then I let that dry, and then the second wash is all done in one. So I just start in the top, and I adjust colors as I go, but I'm all trying to keep it in the middle value range. Nothing too dark, right? And I'm softening edges as I go, leaving some hard, and I'm just building up the painting this way from light to dark. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is really go into my darks, and there's still some more middle values to go, but then get to hopefully the point where I can finish the painting and you can see subtle adjustments that I do. But I do have to say, the first thing I really try to do is get to this point. I'm always checking my value study. Do I have the big shapes yet? Once I have the big shapes, then I can go in and decide how much extra detail I want, subtle shifts maybe that I need, but then I can be a little more careful and think. And of course, that's the point where you can really overwork it, right? It's really, it's really easy to do that. But I try my best to not do that, as we're all trying our best not to do that, right? Okay. So first thing I'm going to do, so my colors. When I think of my colors, I basically have a solid base set of colors that I just are part of every paint. It's basically a red, yellow, and a blue that's what I start my first washes in. And then I do bring other shortcut and fun colors. You can see I have more than 3 colors on my palette, but I don't use every color for every painting. I really do work in a limited palette in a way, one painting between 6 to tops maybe 10 colors. But the bulk of my painting is with these red, yellow, and blue because I use a lot of grays, basically neutrals. And how do you get gray and neutral? Red, yellow, and blue. So this is transparent yellow oxide, Quin rose, and cobalt blue. So I'm just bringing out some pools of it. This is my plein air palette, but I've started using it more and more in my studio because I just love it. Okay, and mostly because I love these mixing areas. These 3 areas are great. Okay, so first, what I'm going to kind of do is show you when I made this big shadow shape. Okay, it's not easy, okay, to do that whole big thing. But with my brush, I'm thinking about the planes of the snow and the direction of where those dappled light is going to go, the direction of where the shadows are going across the lay of the land. So I'm very conscious of that as I do that. So what I want to do is also adjust a few values in there so that there's some subtle shifts. So I'm just going to start by making some kind of gray, not going to completely mix that. And we'll just kind of test this. So some of these areas where the snow comes and dips down, especially in these area parts, is going to be darker. And I can adjust the value just by adjusting the water, pigment to water ratio. Okay. And a lot of times what I do is I put a shape down, then I can soften that so that it's not all hard. But I don't want to have every shape softened either. The other thing I love to add into my gray mixtures is lavender. And yes, there's a little bit of opacity in there. So I'm starting to just bring in that important shape of the, whatever that thing is. I have a hard time with nouns by the 4th day of a workshop, so just done a week, so you're going to have to deal with my inadequacy. Okay. Now, I can pop in more color there if I want to adjust the color. But also within the snow, there's going to be various shifts. I also can take any questions, really. I don't have to keep being silent.
Do you always paint on dry paper?
Thank you. No. You know, sometimes I will wet an area if I need it, but not huge. I don't usually pre-wet the whole paper. That's not usually what I do because I like to control my edges. So I more would rather bring in some shapes, soften a few things, because then I want hard and soft edges. I don't want everything soft unless I'm doing an more atmospheric painting. So really kind of depends. So I'm picking out little shapes here and there. And then I'll get to something dramatic, I promise. But as I paint, I'm constantly changing my mixture here. I'm grabbing a little more yellow, a little more blue, a little more red, still with those same colors.
Brienne,
Yeah.
do you have a photo you're working from?
I'm working off of my oil painting. Yeah. But I've also painted this, so a lot of times when I've painted this, I have a lot in my head already of kind of what I want to do. But yeah, sorry, I guess I could put it down so you could see it. Can you see it? Does that help? Okay. Okay, we can do that.
As long as we can see it.
Yeah. I'm here to make you happy, here to serving you. So sometimes I won't do this type of thing till the end. I'm just bringing out a few things to help me just or realize where the form of some of these snow shapes are. Let's get that one darker.
What was the yellow that you're using?
Transparent yellow oxide. Okay, that's a start. All right, let's go into something. We're going to get these trees in, these dark trees, because again, that's a big shape, this mass of trees here. So in order to do that, I mix my greens. So we're going to bring in a little bit of this bright yellow, and then sometimes I'll mix Payne's gray in it to mix up kind of a more neutral yellow. And then I'm going to bring a little bit of this trans yellow oxide to adjust my greens. One thing I learned about, okay, so moving from Utah, where I'm surrounded by grays, purples, reds, yellows, they're so great, and their accent is the green, right? Then I'm surrounded by green when I go to Pennsylvania. The one thing I've really learned about green, for at least me, as I've done more, plein air and stuff, is that the variety really matters. Okay, just varying up the green. No, I do not match colors, I match values, and that way I'm more free to use whatever colors I want. So I'm just gonna start, man, I'm like shaking a little bit. You guys are making me nervous. Don't know why. Maybe my hand's just tired of, I don't know. Okay, so I'm just gonna think of the big overall shape of these trees. We're gonna have fun with. the shape of these pines. And every time I go here, it's not completely mixed. It's not a homogeneous mixture.
Brienne, you
Yeah.
switched to a different brush when you started the...
I did. This is my favorite brush. This is a just Chinese brush. It's from asianbrushpainter.com. I can't tell you what kind it is because it's in Chinese. But I didn't know what I wanted, so I bought like 25 of them, different kinds, but they're really reasonable. And I thought with the shipping, I might as well get a whole bunch. And I've loved a bunch of them. The hairs, there's different thicknesses, there's different lengths. But yeah, it's just a Chinese calligraphy brush. But I love them for painting trees. They are a natural hair, so I'm going to grab a little orange too to just vary. Again, it's really about varying up the greens with different kinds of yellows and blues. I forgot what I was saying. It was really profound, I'm sure.
Natural hair.
Natural hair, thank you. Yeah, they're natural hair, and so they hold a lot of water, you know, and they can just play with the shapes. Okay, then I might take another brush and use some of my transparent red oxide. It's kind of like, it's like burnt sienna, but I'm going to grab some of my other grayish colors. Okay, because then we're going to get more of a mass. So I have one, you're like, whoa, what are you doing? I have one that I really wanted to get kind of formed, and then this other mass next to it is just going to be a few things. Trees are masses. Trees are one of the hardest things to paint, I think, because we tend to want to order them, give them structure and all of that, when really they're not, or they're organic in shape, they're abstracted, they're just wonderful shapes. So I love to just kind of play with the shape. I'm still doing the essence of these trees. I wanted these to kind of, there's different kinds of pines. These ones I'm bringing down, like they have the boughs that go down. Maybe there's another little one here. I don't know, just making shapes. Okay.
Would you say these are happy trees?
Happy little trees. Of course. I love Bob Ross. I watched a lot of him. I don't know how happy they are yet till the end of the painting. Then I'll know. Okay. Now, we need to do something with the bottom of that shape. So I'm just thinking of the overall shape first. But already, with the darker value, it's helping the back recede a little bit. Okay, now, because I brought those trees actually further down than I wanted to, okay, let's just, we can make it work. Like I told my students, sometimes don't freak out. If it didn't work out the way you originally wanted, all right, I'm going to change my plan. That happens when I'm demoing. I've done that a lot, where I'm like, okay, this is my plan, and then I do the exact opposite. So let's change the, yeah, there's a little green in that shadow, but I'm okay with that. Now, I'm going to bring this other little green bush here. Again, I just want this mass, and you're going to see once I get it all together, hopefully it'll all make sense.
Brienne, when you have the opportunity to share your paper towel apron.
Oh, yeah. My one moment of real brilliance is that I hated aprons. I was like, no, I don't need an apron. I'm an artist. I'm okay if paint's all over my clothes. But I can put my paper towels in the pocket. And then I don't have to hold on to a wet paper towel that just keeps getting wet and dirty. So you'll see me dipping. I have a wad of paper towels in here. Then, of course, my pants get all wet. This is why we don't go to fancy restaurants after I'm plein air painting. The only reason, of course. All right. Okay. Squirt that. Let's keep going. Okay, there's also massive trees here. I wanted this opening, so I changed it, of course, from my reference photo. I'm just gonna thinking of big masses, just having fun with it. Just find out what's gonna happen. You wanna know how it's gonna look like? So do I. So plein air painting, so I am probably more known for my plein air work. Plein air painting for me started when I took in 2009, I took a workshop from Roland Lee. He's a Utah artist. Most of you probably don't know who he is, but he's great. And he came to me, it was my first workshop that I'd ever taken. I didn't even know those things existed, right? And he came over to me at the end of the workshop. He's like, Brienne, you're pretty good, but you need to get outside and paint. And I was like, oh, you mean people do that? Like, I can do that? I was like, I didn't even know it was a thing. And so I was like, okay. So my very first experience of plein air, I joined a competition. I jump in with both feet whenever I'm doing. And I had 3 days. I only had 3 days because I had a young 1-year-old son at the time. And my parents could take him, only for 3 days. And so what was I thinking? Yes, so then I was like, okay, so I went and brought my whole studio with me. I mean, it was crazy. I had 5 bags. I had my big studio palette. I didn't know what I was doing, but I loved it. It was a really bad painting, and I went back the next day and did it again. I thought, oh, well, I'll just go back and do the same thing again. And it was better the second time. So from then, I just got addicted, and I just loved it. And he was right, and a lot of it comes down to I learned so much from learning from life. That's what I've learned is the key thing. Not having to finish a painting on site, even though, yes, that's what I do when I go to these plein air events. But it's not about having to finish it. It's about just studying from what you see in front of you. Your eye is so much better than any camera. And so just being able to see what light and shadow does helps you to bring back those lessons into your studio. So anyways, playing with different, okay. shapes there. All right. Now we're gonna do a quick little splatter. Splattering with lavender, just kind of blending, let it blend, let it do whatever it wants to do. Now, while this is still damp in there, I'm going to go ahead and bring in some darks. I don't have my darks yet. So I use sap green as a shortcut for my darks. I could, of course, mix it, but then it's just easier to start with that, but then I adjust it, because sap green right out of the tube is not that great. But again, just like anything else, I want to create variety. So you can use different blues to cool that down. I can also add a little bit of a burnt sienna. Okay. Now, I always want to keep in mind where the sun is coming from, and the sun's coming from this direction. We know that from all these long shadows. And so I'm just going to pop in some darks and let them be soft. But this will help form some of these massive trees. Then I can take another brush, let's take this one, rinse it out, dab it to a paper towel, and if there's something that's too hard, I can again just soften. Just the colors of even my darks. Scrape with my fingernail every now and then. Oh, I should say, sorry, sap green and carbazole violet from Daniel Smith is one of my favorite deep, dark violets. It's great, and I use it for when I want those really dark darks.
Brienne, is this your 200-pound paper?
Yes, yeah. So this is Saunders Waterford 200-pound. Cold press. Get a little more red. Okay, and I am thinking of, that this bush is in front of that one, so the darks of the back tree have to kind of inform and shape the bush in front. I cool that down, add a little ultramarine blue to get that really dark back in there. So it just starts bringing out
Brienne, you want to give a plug to the brand of watercolor pigments?
Yeah, so the I using mostly Michael Harding watercolors. So they're really, I love them in the studio because it's kind of like, they're really rich. They don't dry out. They reconstitute beautifully every time. In fact, because they don't dry out, I don't use them much plein air painting because they don't dry out. So I use a mix of Holbein and Daniel Smith when I'm outdoor painting But I love the Michael Hardings for in my studio. Yeah, and they're just really rich and, like I said, just easy to reconstitute. Thinking of form, let's bring some other colors in. Really bring darks in that thing. Sorry, this is like a long process, but you can see the rhythm of how I'm going through this. That's how I paint. I put a shape down, then I might soften it.
So when you're going back
Yeah.
into the trees, is the paint on the trees still wet?
It's damp. Yeah. It's not wet, because it's dried a little bit. It's nice. It's like a perfect time because it's still getting soft edges. Yeah, but not like losing the edge. And also, so I'm always trying to look for ways to really just think of the mass. I'm not trying to even follow my oil painting as far as the shapes of these. I'm just having fun with it and making it up as I go along, right? Because I like things to look impressionistic. Really, it's more about sticking with my value study and making sure I have all those pieces together. All right. I'm going to actually bring some more down here. I was noticing I wanted this shape. I love that shape, but I want it not to be as big as that shape over there. So I'm trying to find the right balance. Okay, oh, not that one. Let's get lavender. We're going to squirt again. Splatter, I mean. Okay. I'm noticing, well, let's just, more shadow. Okay, I'm just going to give this bush subtle. Value shifts, okay. So it did kind of move in there and now it looks like it's up front. Okay, so it's gonna be up front. Again, like I tell my students, I'm not gonna freak out. All right, I'm gonna move on. I'm seeing some compositional problems of what's going on there, but I'm not going to address them right now because it's damp. What I'm noticing is that this shape is exactly the same size as that shape. So those are too much the exact same size. That happens. So I'm going to connect them with something else in between so it becomes more of one. But I'm going to do that later when it dries. Okay. I'm going to soften that edge a little. I'm going to do something back in this area. This here, give us a little more definition. So I want this bush to have the warmest, most saturated color, not saturated, but the most saturated of the painting. So I'm just going to drop in some of this orange and then use that to give form to this bush or tree or whatever it is. Then we're going to bring that shadow. Okay. I'm going to just use kind of some stuff here to get a neutral color. Just bring out a few variation in that field. But I want it very light, but it's too, there's not enough texture there. Like that little bit of light right there, kind of snow peeking, maybe a little bit of snow there, so I'll just kind of leave that. But this variation will just give the feeling that there's something going on back there without doing much to it, not being too nitpicky with it. All right, also gonna soften. Some of that. Okay. Bring in a few darks. Just at the bottom of that bush to kind of ground it. Okay. While I'm waiting for that to dry so I can address that problem, I'm going to come in and bring the next big shape in, which is the stream. So this is a good example of how I work. I keep coming back to this saying, okay, I need to get to those big shapes. I've identified a problem, but I'm not always going to just address that right now. With composition, there's lots of solutions to a problem. So it's like, I find a problem, all right, what are my options? And what can I do, right? And I'll just address those and try to do the best I can with what I have. And one option is, of course, eventually starting over. But that's not an option for now. I get rid of some of this green because I don't want green down in my stream. Okay. All right, so the stream is more, it's a cooler dark. Oh, so we need an area where we can bring back my blue. So I'm going to go ahead and bring back my pools of the trans yellow oxide, my cobalt blue and quin rose. Because if I use this similar colors throughout the painting to create my grays, whether it's light, middle, dark, I always bring in the ultramarine blue eventually because cobalt blue can only get so dark. That way there's a unity about the painting and no color feels too much out of place. And so that's something that I'm always striving for. All right. So just with a little bit of this right at the bottom. I'm going to darken it in places. Okay. That gives just a little more form to that river. All right. Now I'm really focusing on I'm going to bring lavender into this too. Lavender is like everywhere in my painting. It's a magic color, the only magic color. No, just kidding, there is no magic color. Okay. Adjusting constantly, I'm just adjusting the mixture of those grays. I want that really, really light, actually. Okay. All right, there's a little bit of warm dot there. Okay, get some more of this. There we go. In the area where the sun is kind of hitting that piece right there, I've really warmed it up, so I'll use that warmth a little later. Any more questions? Okay. Everything seems so clear. Okay. So you can see there's just like gradation of different, but it's still all overall gray, but I'm just going to constantly be changing that.
Do you have pencil lines on there or something?
No, I'm closing my eyes and just praying that this will work. No, yes, I do. I've drawn it out, and so I am following that a little, but it's a guide. So if I don't do it exact, it's fine. But I do have a guide to where I'm trying to follow along a little bit, because I need those lines so I know the perspective of that shoreline, right? And I'm following that along. Yeah, great question. Anybody else? Man, I feel like putting music on and dancing for you guys or something.
As you work,
Yes.
you are squinting your eyes a lot.
Yes. You've noticed. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I do squint my eyes a lot because I'm looking at the overall shape. I'm really focusing on that, not on, I really focus on shapes all the times I can, like not on objects. So not getting the exact thing. So I want to make sure it's getting that right value changes. So yeah, good question. Thank you. And then just as I go along, yes, I have pencil lines, but like something comes up and I'm like, I kind of like that shape, so I'll let it kind of happen. One thing to notice how I'm not hurrying through this. This is a really big piece. It's kind of like this shape is really important to the painting. So I don't want to rush it. I can adjust things later. I can make some adjustments, but only some.
So Brienne,
Yeah.
I have another brush follow-up question. What is it that you love about this brush that you're using?
Okay,
What is it
yeah.
that you love about the other brush that you're using, because they are really different?
Yes, they are very different. So what I love about this one is that, okay, so I kept trying to use flat brushes. I'd put it in my plein air bag and I'd never use it. I was always using rounds, but I kept saying, I want to, but for some reason I just couldn't bring myself to, I wasn't connecting, right? So, but this one, I can make a flat or I can make a point. I can mush it around. Oops, I can drip with it. And I can, I can make just funky shapes. And I like the long handle and the long bristles. So there's a lot I love about this for just, I can have control over it as long as I'm careful with it, right? But that's one thing I really love about this brush. Now the other brush, in the kind of shapes I can make. Yep, exactly. Where my other ones, the Escoda brushes, they're synthetic, and so I can control my water a lot. But, and they come to a great point. So really, technically, I could do a whole painting. This one is any kind of mop or quill I need for the first wash to hold a lot of water. Then I could do really the rest of the painting with this because it comes to a good enough point, but yet I could still paint big areas. I'm gonna add this one to it because I'm just in a love affair with this guy. But do I need it? If I only pick 2 brushes, it would be those 2 because I could do the whole painting with it. Okay, great questions. Thank you.
Do you find that Escoda brush has to be replaced?
I will use them for a long time. That's the nice thing about the synthetic brushes is that they last a long time. Now that having been said, I think this one will last a long time too, even though it's natural because I'm not looking for it for a fine point, right? So it might lose its point, but that's not the main thing that I want it for. All right. Okay, come in here, making that, and then there's this little shape I need to make. A little bit of cooler right through here. There. Okay, so now that I've made that big long shape, I'm going to go in, get out most of the water in my brush, right? And then again, soften just a few areas, especially in the shadowed areas so that it's not all too harsh. Some of this got maybe too dry, but I can soften it a little. Let's bring that in. While this is still damp, I can go ahead and do that quickly. I'm also going to lift out some reflections here. If I had enough time, maybe I didn't. There's some rocks here. Might lift out a few spots.
So I have 2 questions.
Yes. Yep.
Treatments. Is it this aspect of them staying open longer? You created this big shape where with some treatments it completely dry, but now you have it's still.
For a little bit, but it's mostly that they don't dry out here. But yeah, some of this, a lot of that real still has to do with the, how humid or anything it is.
And then do you know what the binder is?
Well, they do use honey in it. So just like M-gram. And so Michael Harding, of course, makes great oil paints, right? He's, if you don't know who he is, he started out oil painting. His oil paints are amazing. He's in the UK, but he's been developing a watercolor line. It took him 7 or 8 years. He thought he could do it in like 3, but watercolors are harder to make. And I've been kind of testing them, helping him test them and stuff for the last 4 years. And they just came out in the US like a year and a half ago. So they are now available in the US. You can buy them through Dick Blick, a lot of other art stores too. Okay, all right, so now you can start to see the bulk of the scene, right? Now that I've got more of those darks in. What are we looking at for time? I can't even tell. 11:30, and what do I go to? Noon? Okay, half an hour, thank you. Okay, so what I'm gonna now do is, let's see, I do wanna make adjustments on this shape. So what are some options? There's a number of options to change this shape. I could bring in another, I don't wanna lose this hole though, so I don't want to just fill it in. I mean, that is one option, but that to me is just like, I didn't want that. But I can bring in just another value tree to kind of connect them a little so they're not so two big shapes. So I'm going to try doing that. And I'm going to try, not necessarily with green. It's really more making sure the value. Let's try this. I know you didn't see that. Sorry, I'm still deciding what I'm going to do. Add a little orange to that. Okay, then I can. Going to kind of highlight that a little bit. So bring this other darker shape, but a different color. And just change that shape up so it's not so, I don't even know what to say, like a box. It's too boring. That helps. Almost. Get some. No. Well, it helps a little bit. So we're just going to keep that. Oh, that's better. Okay. All right, let's keep moving. Let's go on to what I would do with some more of the details within this river. So same colors, same base colors at least. Again, I bring in other colors, but same base. I will bring in some ultramarine blue for places where I want to get really, really dark. And then I'll also bring in trans red oxide. So my darkest dark is, well, one of my darks is ultramarine blue, trans red oxide, which is like burnt sienna, and then quin rose. pretty classic dark combination. Okay, now here's where I do need to see this a little more. Just a minute. I can only make up so much. Okay, let's start over here. I'm going to bring in one brush to be my softening brush. And then one to just be my dark. But again, with my dark mixture, I keep adjusting. Gonna bring in another.
Do you have a preference for watercolor or oils as your favorite plein air?
Plein air watercolor. Yeah. I love doing oils, but I mostly love doing oils in the studio. I mean, I do them plein air too, but I prefer watercolor.
And do you reverse this process and use the plein air watercolors again as your preference for your...
For oils, yeah, yep, I do both process. So I do it both ways. I like working both ways like this. It kind of helps me to stay fresh in a way, because it keeps me, it's a different way to think. And so I'm trying to not have doing the same process all the time. I want to kind of vary it. So here I'm bringing variation of different shapes. Got to remember which brush is which. Yeah, sure. You know, I'm always trying to look for, you know, kind of the basics, like I talked about, the fundamentals that we talk about. You know, how are they using their values? How are they using their colors, shape, form, that kind of stuff? How proficient do they feel? How comfortable they are in watercolor? Also, I try to look at, because everybody has a different style, right? And I love the different styles, and so I try to look at with what their style is, and what are they trying to go for? What is their intention? And then are they successful in that intention? And then I'm very big on composition and being thoughtful. So you know, did we just kind of put things randomly, or is it thought out? Or even if it's accidental, but that it looks like it's thought out. Does that make sense? You know, so that the colors are placed in certain areas, the shapes are thoughtful. It's not just, okay, we're just gonna copy what's there and do it as is. You know, so I really like to see paintings like that and really try to get into the artist's intention of what they were doing. Of course, I can only do that so much. It's like, so I was jurying a plein air show somewhere, and it was a panel of three judges, and this group of 6 ladies came up to me and was like, "Can we ask you questions about what you guys chose. And I love that. So I'm like, yeah, please do. And they were like, well, why did you choose these? Because these paintings over there, we can tell that this was Bob's house. And it just is done so well. I mean, you can tell where this is. And, you know, I just had to say it. I'm like, well, yeah, that's great. But I don't know Bob's house, right? I'm not from here. And that's not the type of thing I'm looking for, like how well was something rendered so that I know exactly what it is. Like that's a piece, but then since I don't know the intention, I only have my own experiences, right? And so it's important that your paintings kind of stand alone for what it is, and allowing whoever the judge is or whoever the viewer is to kind of come up with those on their own. But yeah, so I don't know, that was kind of a long-winded way to say. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's the kind of thing that I like to see. And I love to see the different, you know, abstracts, highly representational, impressionistic, all of it is so fun. And it's not necessarily, I really try not to just be caught up into something that I like versus something that's successful. So I'm always trying to think, okay, is the artist whatever they're trying to do, are they successful? So that's really the main thing I'm looking for. Great question. Anybody else? Man, I'm thinking, Brienne, why did you choose this one? There's a lot going on. And I can keep doing a whole bunch of little things like this. These little variations, these are the details. But I have the bulk shapes, the bulk value shapes from this. But these little things about how much detail and stuff do you need, that becomes a personal choice.
Do you find that if you step away from it and not look at it, I know you can't do that when you're out plein air, but you can bring what you've got rendered back to the studio?
Yes.
But if you're in a studio and you're working on this kind of detail work, do you
Yeah.
find this helpful if you back away from the painting?
Yeah.
Let your eyes refresh
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
before you
Have you ever, I like to call them gremlins. When you're like painting and you're working into the night and you're like, oh, this isn't working, what am I doing, all this stuff, and you wake up and you're like, oh, who worked on that? Like, that looks better. I swear it did not look that good last night. I call them gremlins, and sometimes you can go the other way, right? Where you're like, hey, that was really good last night. But yeah, it does help to have those fresh eyes, right? To come back to it and be like, oh, now I can see, because we get caught up into, you know, every little piece at a time, and we're not able to see everything clearly, especially as we start to get tired or, you know, whatever. So yeah, definitely. And I do that, so even in my plein air work, unless I'm doing a plein air competition, okay, that is a different thing where I have to have something done, framed, and, you know, in a show. But if I'm just plein air painting for myself, I try to get it to maybe 80% done, you know, and then I can kind of take that back and look at it, and I put it up in my studio, and I just kind of keep glancing at it. Like, how does that look? You know, I don't just sit there and study at it. And if something just grabs me as like, ugh, like this, it's like just, oh, that's not working, then I'll try to fix it. And if nothing grabs me like that, it's done. I mean, really, that's how I try to figure it out. And that just kind of helps me not to overwork something. Kind of get it to where I think, I'm close, but not quite there. Okay. Yes. Oh, don't is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay, let's get this up like that. Yeah. Very good. So I was hoping with this one to show, when I had that just first wash, sometimes it looks so dark, right? Oh my gosh, you've got this. But once you start to put in your other darks, that just fits right into place, where it's like, oh, now it looks like a shadow. And it's all about getting those value relationships in the right place, right? And too many times, sometimes, especially as we're learning, so I know a lot of you are really advanced artists, but for those of you that are just learning and starting, we tend to judge as we paint in watercolor. Don't do that. You got to get to the end before you can judge it, because until you have the darks, until you have those things, the values are so hard to judge. When I have other plein air painter friends, right, and they're like, oh, you do watercolor, that's like so hard. And I mean, I guess I'm used to it, but I'm kind of thinking, actually, I love, mixing color and watercolor so much easier than oil, I have to say, because you can let it do it, right? It does the work. But they think it's hard because you can't fix mistakes. Okay, yes, I have a mistake here that I'm probably not going to be able to fix. But actually, why I think watercolor is hard is because we are constantly relating our values to white. And when you do that, it skews your values to where everything looks dark. And so you end up not going actually dark enough. Or you go extreme, and then all of a sudden you're dark and you've missed all your middle values, right? So that's just a common thing that kind of can happen. And so that's why you feel like, oh, but I think that is actually the hardest thing. It's not about fixing mistakes or anything like that, because an oil painter gets to get a middle value tone on it and gets light or dark, or gets to push and pull and all of that. Anyways, what time is it? Well, let's keep going. Okay. All right.
How long do you usually paint at a time
In one sitting? Well, so it does depend. When I'm plein air painting, I can do, painting, if it's small, like an hour and a half, but to 3 hours, or if it's large, like 4 hours. I generally don't go over 4. And I'm not one that will go back to a location, usually. There are a few times where I'm like, I just didn't quite capture it, so then I'll go back. But when I'm in my studio, I'm much more relaxed, but I don't have the need to finish it on site. Like on site, I try to finish on site. When I'm in a competition, right? Really only then. If I'm just plein air painting and studying from life, it doesn't have to be finished. Like I can just get it started. That act of studying something for even an hour and putting something on paper, there is no wasted painting experience. You're learning something by even just looking at it. And so the power of plein air is the observation that you get. It's not finishing a piece. And it's not braving the bugs and the wind and the rain, which, yes, there is a lot of, but that's not the point. The point is getting, like my instructor said, like Roland Lee told me, if you want to improve your studio work, plein air can help so much because you learn what light and shadow does. That's the key thing, is learning about light and shadow from life. Just like if you're a still life painter, it's useful to learn from life and actually look at it. Then you can use photos and then use them as tools and understand the differences of what happens in a photo, right? Not that we still can't, as artists, push those and change things and all this fun stuff, but okay. Well, I would need to, let's see. Are All right, I still have some form and stuff I'd like to do. I don't want to overdo this though, but there's a few spots here. Okay, so I'm just going to take some of this muddy stuff and this is one of those things like at this point in my studio, I would love to put it up on my rails and I would look at it for a couple days. So I've now gotten to the point where I have the bulk. I have the value pattern set. But I need to look at it for a while and then decide how much more I needed, or am I just going to get nitpicky? Which might happen. Oh, I know what I didn't do. Oh, no, don't like that. No, don't like that. There, that's better. Okay, there's these wonderful rocks over here on this side. Again, just places in the snow that kind of come out. And these are the kind of little details that don't, a little of this can go a long way. Don't have to do a lot of it, but it does help with the feel of the painting.
So is this the picture you took, and then how did you change it to get the composition you want?
Oh, great. We can talk about that. So, yeah, I did make a bunch of changes. Now, overall, the scene is very similar to this. But some of the changes are, I should really show it up there, then you can see so give me just a minute. Let's talk about that. Last 5 minutes. Can someone tell me when it's 5 minutes to go? How much do I have, 5 minutes? Yeah, okay. All right, I'm going to take a few accents and little details that just, like there's these, in pencil, there's always brush. There's always like stuff sticking up out of the snow, which I love. And so we're just gonna like bring in some of these. You don't want to get too crazy with it. Break up some of that. And then just scrape a little bit. Just a few places. Oh. Okay. Just in a few locations, and it just helps to break up the space sometimes. darker. Okay. All right, now I'm going to take some of this lavender. This is kind of what I would call my accents. I'm going to take this lilac actually. So just in a few places, little spots of bright color. And even up in these trees, because they're just such a big dark. And if I don't like it, I can soften some things. Get it really washy. Lots of water. Sometimes I'm just doing it to kind of affect. Oh, one thing I should say, when I painted that first shadow, whenever there's a plane change, I'm adjusting the temperature. And you can see that as you get closer to it. Am I to 5 minutes yet? Yeah, told you to tell me.
30 seconds.
Oh, wow, see, my inner clock is doing great. Must be from being a mom of 3 boys. Okay. Right, one more thing. Okay. There. Okay. All right, I could keep going, so, okay, we'll stop. All right, so, yeah, so you can come up and see this after, but I think I'm to the stopping point right now. And let me talk a little bit about the compositional changes that I made when I was doing the oil painting. Let's see if we can change the source again. I'll have to. Oh, wait, I do have to plug it in. All right, I at least know that much. Come on. Okay. All right, so here's the oil painting, which I tried to mimic at least a little bit. And here's the reference photo. So the changes that I made, I really liked the shape of this river, right? But when I first did this, and I had this hump and you have this clump of trees, I wanted to break up the clump of trees better than I broke it up today. But in the oil painting, I did do it better. And then I saw this thing here, and I wanted to bring that line back into the painting so it's not just all the way across, right? And I brought everything, all the lines tend to come to this area, but there's really nothing there. So I added a tree. That's where I add that warmest warm that I can put right in that area to try to help guide the eye back to that point. So if you look back, oops, wrong one, to the oil painting, that was a lot of the compositional decisions that I made, right? But you can see how my mass distribution is much better than it is here. But that's what happens when you're talking and painting. Well, we won't go into that, yeah. All right, well, that's it for my demo today, so thank you.